Mitt Romney is going on the offensive in the battle for the White House. We've got Neil King, the Wall Street Journal political editor down there in Washington, D.C., and he joins us now. Neil, thank you for joining us. So Mitt Romney's been taking a little bit of a beating over his jobs record at Bain Capital, and now he's fighting back.
Well, a little bit more than a little bit of a beating. I mean, he's for 2 weeks essentially, not really responded very aggressively to all the incoming fire from the Obama administration, based on reports and other newspapers and the like about how he, Bain had invested in companies that allegedly shipped jobs overseas. And now finally today, the Republican National Committee and the Romney campaign have both come out in sort of a coordinated way to push back against that. Romney was out in Colorado at a campaign event. He was saying that it was Obama that's the outsourcer in chief. And the RNC put out a new website with hundreds of these various cases. They had combed through the stimulus bill saying, look at all these various ways that federal taxpayer dollars as part of the stimulus package went to companies for solar panels, for a whole array of things, where instead of these things being made in the United States, they were made overseas.
There's a great example that you cite here. $151 million in stimulus went to the manufacturer of lithium-ion batteries at a plant in Holland, Michigan. Sounding good and okay so far, and then it says that it was a subsidiary of a Korea-based company and that they were employing Koreans brought in where they could have employed local U.S. workers, right?
Yeah, well, this is a funny case where in the end, this is the Republicans taking the side of labor complaints, where the local union was saying, why are these Korean people here making this various stuff, and we could be doing that work. And then the company itself saying, well, it made sense for us to bring in these few Korean workers because these were very technical things that we were having to install. I mean, there was a number of funny and kind of other stretches. For instance, they list a big investment that GE made in Vietnam. And the only reason that they listed it all is because the head of GE is on Obama's Jobs Council. So that investment itself had nothing to do with the Stimulus Act. They also listed, for instance, this one I thought was pretty funny. The Melanoma Institute of Australia received a $162,000 stimulus contract to supply the National Cancer Institute with tumor samples. Evidently, we didn't have enough melanoma tumor samples here in the United States, so we imported them from Australia.
Wow. So they're calling this, quote, Obamanomics outsourced. They've not got to be very pleased. What's the Democratic reaction to this? They've not got to be pleased about it.
Well, I mean, they're kind of sloughing it off, and they're trying to make the distinction that really this is, they're trying to keep it, of course, a conversation about Romney, about his own biography, about his claim that he's a job creator, and look at his time at Bain, and trying to hammer at the personal resume of Mitt Romney. And meanwhile, it's interesting that the Republicans themselves are sort of entering into terrain that they don't normally do, which is to call into question the multilateral, sort of multinational nature of today's economy, and questioning why it is that certain of these projects should have involved components or other things that came in from outside of the United States. So it's sort of a anything goes moment on the whole outsourcing front. And, the whole battle is about who is going to appear best, in the best light in front of certain middle-class voters in 3 or 4 states, particularly industrial states in the Midwest. And this is all about portraying, either side as the best protector of middle-class workers.
So how is this playing with potential voters, or likely voters, as pollsters like to call it?
Well, it's interesting, in national polls, including our own poll, and then the Washington Post had a poll that came out today, it basically, about half of the people say it makes no difference Romney's own business path. And then of the other half, it's sort of evenly split, that some people think it makes them less likely to favor him, other people more. But the interesting thing, and I think what really makes the Romney campaign worried, is that if you narrow it down to a number of swing states, the Bain experience, Romney's own Bain experience, becomes much more of a negative than a positive, in part because I think the Obama campaign has been running so many negative ads in those states, highlighting his experience at Bain.
It is interesting. One of the things I know from history about the U.S. general elections for the White House is that when the unemployment and inflation rate go up, the so-called misery index, when they go up during a president's first term, he tends not to get re-elected, regardless of where it starts. And if it goes down, or he will tend to get re-elected. This appears to have gone up and yet it still appears neck and neck.
You know, there's so many things that are anomalous and just strange about this election that we're all going to have to try to deal with. I mean, one is the fact that despite that misery index, as you say, being high, you know, Barack Obama remains a pretty well-liked president with huge support among growing segments of the population, while Mitt Romney, for all of his other advantages, remains a very unliked candidate for the most part, and much of his support, like the Washington Post poll wrote today, showed that the majority of his own supporters support him only because they don't like Barack Obama, and that's not generally the kind of support that a candidate wants to have.